Alright, so this video is inspired by Tectone's um, I Hate Streamers video. I'm going to try and link it in the description once I post this video online for this video's description. Um, but he said some hardcore stuff and he absolutely smashed it. I was kind of interested in it, but at the same time I was like, well, why do you hate streamers if you're a streamer, right? Like that kind of thing. But he clarified he means most streamers, not all streamers. There's a few good ones, but like a lot of it, the streamer thing is so fake and gay and so on. And I was thinking about like, yeah, I get it because like every streamer wants popularity, so it's like geared towards people having narcissism on some level or something like that that drives them to put in the effort to get popular with strangers and so on. And it's kind of like, okay, that's kind of my maybe that's a weakness for me, maybe it's a weakness for Jordan Peterson. Lots of people want to be listened to by lots of other people, and there's only so much time everyone has, so a lot of failures exist, and maybe it frustrates them and they get nasty and so on. And there's not enough narcissistic supply or donation money for everyone. So it's like, okay, some people got to fail. um, but underhanded tactics can sabotage your competition or gain you a little fame for being the one who took down so and so and earn a reputation and so on. A lot of it does seem to be kind of like a takedown, kind of scalping sort of um, mean girls sort of approach. And it seems like some of the more popular channels kind of end up doing that a little bit, even if they're better channels a little bit. And the ones that don't do takedown stuff too much generally stay around 40,000 subscribers or 80,000 subscribers at most, and don't get beyond that generally, it seems. I will say I swear by Sargon of the Cat. I swear by him. I've always supported him basically, except for the "I wouldn't even rape you" comment. And that was back then, and now it's like, holy shit, Jess Phillips is laughing at like raped 14-year-old girls. So like, I would say it to her again, basically. you know, if I were Sargon. But it's like maybe I wouldn't if I were Sargon, because I wouldn't be me. Um, you know. But anyways, like other than that one misstep, basically, I've been supporting Sargon. Uh, like maybe not like materially or like clout wise or anything like that, but just sort of like in my head supporting him as much as I can and like following his lead and like listening to everything he says or something, like a real Sargon fanboy. Can't stress enough how much I love his line of reasoning, his personality, his attitude, um his high-minded but also down-to-earth kind of combination approach, and his increasing, but only with the furthering proof that it's necessary, of forcefulness in his statements. And it's important because there are things that I used to watch called white or read, and I was really laughing at them because I thought they were ridiculous. White Aryan resistance comics or war comics, and like some of them were dealing with mass immigration and like Hollywood's obsession with pairing white women with black men in all of the ads and TV shows and movies and so on, and music videos and so on. And like, okay, you could say that they were right about it, but the thing is, they weren't necessarily right about it at the time they were making the comics. And that's important because if you have a long enough timeline, basically everything has happened under the sun, you know. So what was said in 2000 or 1995 doesn't necessarily mean that they were prophetic about 2025. You know, the exact causes of this stuff and like so on. Um, one of the things white Aryan resistance blamed it all on is Jews and specifically and so on. And it's like, okay, but what kind of Jews? What kind of Jew are you? The Civil War movie, what kind of American are you? You know, like Bibi Netanyahu wants American involvement in Israeli wars. Sure, I get that. But liberal atheist Reddit tier Marxists who happen to be Jewish, and it's the same with white people as well. There's a lot of them who are white, and there's a lot who are black and Hispanic and so on. All because they're liberal atheist Marxist. God, I was about to say Jews. No, not Jews. But because they're liberal atheist Reddit Marxists, all push for the similar things of gay race communism. And it's like, okay, like it's like the brain worm and so on. And maybe because they look at their own skin color and say, the ideology of gay race communism benefits my people, they have a little bit of that nationalism as well, so they can kind of fly under the radar in terms of pure antagonism from their own ethnic communities, because their own ethnic communities are instilled into the constitution of gay race communism to benefit at the expense of the white man. At least in theory, but then when it turns out is the white people flee to other places or they kick them out and suddenly it fails and it's like, okay, we're worse off than we were before we fought the whites and tried to take their stuff. And I'm not loyal to that group anymore because they made things worse for me. I'm joining the white people and living like them now. You know, And I mean, it's not just race entirely. It's like culture and like civilizational attitudes and so on. Like I'm not expecting Africa to be civilized, but like the occasional Black American can be civilized just fine. You know, and it comes from where your culture and history and people grew up in. And the thing is, Black Americans, they look at gangster culture, which wasn't necessarily as big of a thing back in the day when blacks were getting improved living conditions over time compared to before. And eventually, gangster culture took over, and fatherlessness, because of Lyndon B. Johnson's welfare system breaking up intact families and saying, no, we're not going to give an intact family welfare or housing. We're only going to give single mothers housing and welfare. And that led to fatherlessness, which led to gangsterism, and that's what like a huge part of the problem with black culture is, and why the blacks are 13% of the population and 61% of the rapes and murders. It's literally just fatherlessness, coupled, and then along comes afterwards, after that, gay race communism, and it's like this gives me that I deserve it because I want it and no other reason kind of sense of entitlement, and it makes it worse on top of that. But it also hates men, so I think black men kind of turn against it a little bit and so on. And for the black woman, a strong leader who can take a bullet to the head and keep going, Daddy Trump, basically, for the black woman, and laying down the law so that thugs and criminals and predators don't destroy the children of the black woman or the black woman themselves. um, a hardcore masculine society impresses the black woman. So it's like you don't hate the black man, you just hate the predators, and you don't hate the black woman, you just want to enforce patriarchy that they respect because they respect strength because that's all they know is who's strongest, not who's moral or something like that. And then you add a little morality to it, and suddenly it's like the opposite of crack cocaine hitting the black community in the '80s. It's like you build them up basically, you know, or something like that. It might take longer than crack cocaine destroyed the black community, but you know what I mean. Anyways, so that's like a ramble and a tangent and so on. But like, hear me out. I grew up with a really hardcore parent. My father, he was kind of misremembering things and imposing his misremembered stuff on me. And like, if I spoke against him in a sort of like disagreement kind of way, where I disagreed with him at all, then he would like threaten to beat me and stuff like that. And he would send me to the psychiatrist to tell me not to climb Anger Mountain. Um, when I didn't, because I didn't like to be hit, basically. So he's like, "Oh no, you shouldn't get angry just because your dad's angry and hits you." And it's like, okay. Eventually, I just punched him when I was 13, when he was pushing me around and stuff like that. Then he punched me, and then he never punched me again, basically, because he knew I could fight back at that point. Yeah, and that's what settled it. So, sometimes you gotta whoop ass, and you gotta fight, even if they're bigger than you by, 13-year-old versus a 35, 40-year-old. Um, um, Funnily enough, though, I was using my dad's lessons about fighting bullies on my dad. So the poison is the cure in that sense, you know. But I kind of soy boyed out a little bit because I didn't want to be violent anymore, and I didn't want to face that kind of life anymore, and wanted to hide away and play video games and so on, and just live on disability, doing newspaper deliveries for extra spending money. And life was doable that way in some amount of comfort, with a little spare money on top of it. We were doing good. The economy was smart. It wasn't socialist. It was highly capitalist with a reasonable welfare system. It was twice to three times more generous than the current welfare system under the socialists was in terms of actual buying power. And the thing is, we could afford it, and we had balanced budgets, unlike 32 times the debt, with one third to one half the welfare system, and 20 times the homeless as 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 15 years ago. Um, that's the power of capitalism versus socialism. Socialism led to all that crappy stuff, and capitalism was maintaining a good system. Um, anyways, yeah, I've dealt with suicidality and stuff like that, constantly. I'm kind of like in my more hopeful moments. I'm thinking I was promised by God my ex would come back and she'd take care of me financially, or like I'd somehow make money doing streaming or video content, or save up for a new computer and do video game entertainment content and so on. But I don't know if that's ever going to happen properly. I'm not making much headway with my videos, but that's okay. I'll keep plugging away at it just in case. If I give anyone some good advice or something like that in the meantime, then that's good. At least I got to one person. Um, yeah. Anyways, I've admitted to doing things on Twitter that are really immoral in the past. It wasn't just the beatings; it was like the mind games and stuff like that that really messed with my sense of self, and I sort of internalized an abusive worldview, um, and uh, honestly, it kind of manifested for a while, and like from 12 to 15 or something, or 12 to 14. And then basically, I had 2 years in calm, sane, rational, emotionally stable um, caretakers, close family, and stuff like that. And we had a spat at one point, so I got kicked out back to my dad's place. But for a while, it was actually really good, and it calmed me down, and I stopped doing the bad things basically entirely. And you know, I just settled into degenerating more, being a degenerate sort of hardcore WoW player. No skipping school. Went to a distance education class where I could do homework on the internet at home, and that took 2 years to do one course because I was so slow. But I finished it at least, so I technically graduated high school, or at least got my whatever diploma for grade 12. You know, uh, you know, got into a hentai and got into some. Basically, as long as it was hardcore sex with like a roughly adult woman, then I didn't really care what was going on in the porn. Um, you know, um, and doing drugs and stuff like that. Um, Gooning and drugging, basically. What can I say? Drugging women for sex is kind of like a hentai fetish of mine or something. Still to this day, even sort of. But I want to warn you. I want to stress. I'm not actually interested in any of that in real life. Like in real life, I was like, the only time I've ever been with a woman, she was pushing me on the bed, and we were sober. I was letting her dominate me basically, because I didn't want to. I was afraid I might hurt her or something if I was dominant. So like that's kind of like it's gentle basically. Intimacy kind of was my thing, not like hardcore fetish stuff. Basically, what I recognize is the fetish stuff is basically just a. There's a phrase. There's a really good phrase for this. If you deny a man food, he will eat poison. So I just recognize my fetishes are that basically, Um, actually, the drugging and screwing a woman thing actually kind of faded away a little bit because of all the migrant crimes and hearing about them doing it, and I was just like, oh, I can't fap to that anymore. So nothing ruins a fetish like reality, I guess. But anyways, one of the things I noticed is like, um, and by the way, my ex girlfriend was legal and consensual. So it's not like I'm breaking the law by being with her in the first place at the time. And I specifically thought I might be if I were with her. And I basically looked up the law so I could like shove it in her face and say, no, you can't be with me until you wait. But it turns out the law didn't say anything about it. There was no Romeo and Juliet clause. There was no like older age or anything like that. Um, 17 with 30. Now, if you get mad at me, that's fine. It's pretty bad, I guess. But I intended not to leave her ever. That's the reason why I was with her in the first place. I was like, well, if I'm with her, I'm never going to leave her. And I've stayed faithful for 8 years despite her leaving after 4 months. um, alone, in poverty. So I've made mistakes, but at the same time, I've tried to atone for them and make up for them. And like the other thing I've done is I've like gotten myself shot in the guts, which is like brutally painful. A burning hot piece of metal slicing your guts up is brutally painful, and I volunteered for that. I volunteered to have that happen to me. Another thing is I tried to castrate myself. Poetic justice. That hurt, but I wasn't bleeding, so I stopped doing it because the point was to perish. Um, um, I stabbed myself in the chest through the lung, barely missing my heart. Um, you know, um, and basically slashed my wrist a bunch of times, gashed my neck with a knife, which means like slicing my neck up a little bit in an area, trying to dig, find a vein or an artery or something. 7 times. Overall, 46 times basically doing all this stuff. About 10 of it was taking Tylenol or ibuprofen too much. 7 bottles of Tylenol, or basically 1.5 hours between starting a bottle and finishing it. 40 to 50 capsules of Tylenol over 7 days, um, over 2 months. So like 7 times over 2 months, and 3 times with ibuprofen. So like it's a. When I tried to drown myself too, that was the first attempt I did. But I might be schizo, but I think that was God's baptism, sort of like the marker that I was turning into a new person. Um, yeah, but I had to go through all this stuff, and God was commanding me to do it. But He told me ahead of time, basically, that He would make me do it through a friend, and the friend told me my ex's name and like how long we'd be together before she leaves, and the bad things I would say to her, and basically said you're gonna have to go through it. The one thing you don't have to go through is the shooting, but that's what's going to get her back in the first place after a bunch of time. Um, and I guess, it's in the news, so the shooting thing is like, it's undeniable that it happened, so it's like really hardcore, and I think she's gonna, if she looks me up, then she might actually be like, oh, okay, well, he's not lying about that, and he's probably serious about the other things. And like, if she's watching my videos or anything like that, she's seen maybe my Battle Scars Fighting Sins video where I take my shirt off and I show my chest scars and my belly scars and so on. So at least some of it's definitely true. Um, so don't feel too angry. Don't feel like you have to hate me. But basically that's the kind of thing I've been through voluntarily to pay for my sins, basically. So if you want a solid person who's not afraid to speak his mind, and if he's angry, he's angry. If he's happy, he's happy. And he's not afraid to say what is on his mind, no matter how brutal it is or unfriendly. Um, then I am the one of those guys who can do it because I've already done it. And that's one of the things that the tectone video basically made me think about. I'm like, well, I'm a relatively honest guy. I've admitted to almost all my bad deeds. You know, um, and I've done the hard work to repent, as painful as it might be and dangerous. Um, and I can call for total chomo, total pedo death. And the thing is, I've tried to do it to myself, so it's not like I'm a hypocrite. Even if I did something similar with 17 and 30 in the similar direction, but not quite as bad as what these other people do in terms of like 9-year-olds or something, or 12-year-olds. Um, you know, or 2-year-olds, like I saw about one black guy in the UK doing. Uh, you know, so I think God was gifting me the gift of having repented voluntarily, as hardcore as one can imagine, doing things to myself that I would expect be done to these other people who've done way worse, even. Um, um, Without being a hypocrite, because I've gone through worse than they'd have, or they will, even if I were to be able to control what happens to them. You know, and I can say some pretty nasty things about what I want done to them, and the thing is, I've been through worse voluntarily to pay for my doing less bad. I've said this over and over again on Twitter, so like you might just be like, whatever, man, and so on. But I swear by Sargon. What can I say? That's my one thing. I swear by Sargon. He has almost always been on the right path in some way or other. And Andrew Clavin, Nick Freitas, maybe the distributist, and the Prudentialist is pretty cool. Um, you know, but and Gavin Orland is pretty cool. John Piper's pretty cool. Doug Wilson's pretty cool. Um, Father Mike Schmitz is pretty cool. Bishop Robert Barron's probably a little too immersed in the Catholic upper echelons nowadays, but he's alright, I guess, in a way. Dry Creek Wrangler School or Bible Room Tack Room Bible Talk. Same guy, different channels. One's Bible oriented, one's general life and manliness kind of experience stuff. Rancher stuff, farmer stuff. And he's amazing. He's got that sort of raw, like, I don't care what you think, this is what I think kind of approach. He's pretty damn good. He's a very polite guy in a way and so on, but he gets heated about some stuff, like people saying little babies go to hell and stuff. Um, yeah, yeah. Anyways, those are some really good influencers, I guess. But Sargon's my personal favorite because he's just sort of speaks in that intellectual, but on the feet on the ground kind of way, common sense intellectual.